This is the Do This Sell More show. I'm your host, Dave Lorenzo. Welcome to another edition of the show. And today we have a very special guest for you. He's been my friend for, I had to think, like it's at least 7 years, probably 10 years. And I found him through the online marketing world to lawyers. But he is really an expert on using video to help you grow your book of business, regardless of whether you're an independent practitioner like he is, a sole practicing attorney, or you're a sales professional who's out there trying to kill it day in and day out. His name is Gerry Oginski, and he, by trade, is a very, very good, probably one of the best personal injury attorneys on Long Island, in Nassau County, Long Island. But he is also an expert in video marketing. Now, I found Gerry from his video marketing capabilities to lawyers. I think I stumbled upon him in a marketing group of sharp people, and I went to his website, and at the time he probably had maybe 300 videos. Today he's got over 3,000 videos on his website. We'll talk all about what got him into that, but Gerry is the guy you should call if you want to have a turnkey solution for doing video in your practice if you're a professional, particularly if you're a lawyer. But he's the guy you can call, and he'll help you get online and do videos in a way that will produce a return on investment regardless of what your profession is. The name of his business where he helps people with video is Lawyers Video Studio. And I'm going to give you his phone number. You'll see it down on the screen if you're with us on YouTube, which reminds me that if you're listening to this as a podcast, I welcome you. I thank you for joining us. But go on YouTube. Go to YouTube.com/Dave Lorenzo, and you'll see the show. This is our 5th episode, and we bring you experts who are action. You know what? I gotta edit that out. This will be our 11th episode. Our 5th episode is going up this week. This is our 11th episode, and you'll find actionable content that you can go and watch over and over and over again, and it'll be good 10 years from now. So without further ado, let me welcome in Gerry Oginski. Gerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you're a personal injury lawyer. You try big cases where people have been wronged, and they're looking to you for justice. You've gotten some unbelievable, some fantastic verdicts. You're at the top of your game. Why video? And what got you into video in the first place? Tell us the story.
In 2006, 2007, my caseload was going down. I'm a solo practitioner, and I didn't understand why. And I didn't have the money to create TV advertising and create all these expensive yellow page ads. And so what happened was I was looking around for something to do. And at that time, I was learning about something called education-based marketing. Try and teach people something. So I started writing articles for my website. And then this funny sounding, website came online called YouTube that said, we're now accepting user-generated video content. And I had no idea what that meant. But the more I began looking into it, I saw people putting on these stupid little videos, and I'm thinking, wait a second, this might be an ideal medium for me to put an educational message on there to teach and educate the people who are searching for an attorney who don't know an attorney. So that's what got me started, because I didn't have the money to go ahead and do what the big gorillas in my industry were doing. I didn't have the millions of dollars. So I did something that nobody else in my industry even knew about back then, when YouTube just came online. And then I saw, there was some marketing guys who put the attorney's TV ads on this platform called YouTube. And I'm thinking, wait a second, why would anybody in their right mind want to watch a 30-second lawyer commercial? I said, it's such a waste of time. Nobody goes online to look for that. I said, why can't I just put an educational message on there? And that's what I started to do. But the problem was nobody was teaching anybody how to do it. And it was so complicated, and there was very little bandwidth. And unless you had all the equipment and knew what to do, you just couldn't do it. So it took me weeks and months to try and figure this out. And because of that, that got me started thinking, hey, wait a second. If I can create a message on a video, now all of a sudden, maybe I can get people interested who are actually looking. And after that first video, which took me forever to create, which was probably the worst video in creation, it was dark, it was grainy, it was pixelated. I'm sitting in my home office with a gray screen behind me because I didn't want anybody to know where I was shooting video. I'm wearing shorts, but a button-down shirt. And you know what? I put that video up online, and after a few days, I started to get calls from people who said, "Hey, Mr. Oginski, I saw your video online. Can I ask you some questions?" Yeah, of course you can. And that was the trigger that suggested to me that people would actually go online to look for this type of information. And after I did one, I figured, you know what, let me do a second. Let me do a third. And now 10, 11 years later, I've got more than 3,000 videos online to help educate these people to understand how these types of cases work.
I love that story. And I'll tell you, I watch your videos, and I've never taken a deposition in my life, but you have dozens of videos up there on depositions, questions you can ask, what you should say, what you shouldn't say. And the way you present the content, it sucks me in, and I don't do that for a living. So give me your secret. Give everybody who's listening, watching, what's your secret to making content like taking a deposition or stuff you can talk about in a deposition interesting? What's the secret, Gerry?
The secret is developing trust with your viewer. You have to be able to teach them something they didn't know. So it doesn't matter if you're an attorney, if you're a salesman, you own a business, you have a service provider, okay? You have to connect with your ideal client and consumer, and you have to explain something to them that they didn't know. They have questions. They're hesitant about buying your services or your product. So take the time to actually teach them before they pick up the phone to call or before they come into your physical store, because now what you're doing is you are educating them about how your service or product works. And nothing could be simpler, because you know that's what's going on in their minds. And they may not know the exact questions to ask, but the moment you start teaching them about something they didn't know, all of a sudden you become the trusted go-to resource. And the more you continue to give them that great information in an interesting fashion, you know, not a boring presentation, but something that's interesting and fascinating, and you make it fascinating, all of a sudden they get sucked into that story, and you're like, oh, wait a second, let me hear more. What else does he have to say? Tell me more about this. And that brings them to the next video and the next video you've created. And next thing you know, they're watching a whole series of your videos as if they're binge watching. That prompts them to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, Dave, tell me more about Strategic Sales Academy. Tell me more about what you do and how you sell. You have to develop the trust. And the only way to really do that is to look your viewer in the eye and teach them something, and do it in a great conversational way, like we're having this conversation now.
Right. All right, Gerry. So that makes perfect sense to me. Tell me a story about how this worked for you. Like when the first time that you realized that these videos were going to put money in your pocket. Because I love to get phone calls and I love to have conversations with people. But tell me a story about when you first realized that you were going to get really good cases from doing these videos.
Well, it was that first video where people started to call me, and I couldn't believe that somebody would call me after watching a video. This was unheard of to me. And I'm thinking, wait a second, the video I created was how to hire a medical malpractice lawyer in New York. No one had ever put up a piece of content like that before. Right. It was something so simple, teaching my ideal client how to look for an attorney and what to look for. But these people were looking, and they said, wait a second, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I think I've been injured by a doctor. I don't know how to hire an attorney. This guy's giving me a video that explains step by step what to look for. Now he's giving me great information. So that was the initial impetus, the trigger in my mind that said, wait a second, if this person is looking for that type of information, let me go ahead and explain 3 things that they need to know when an attorney evaluates a case. Let me explain 5 things they need to know if they think a doctor was careless. Let me explain. And now I start thinking up different ways, and that brings me to understanding the mindset of my ideal client or consumer. And so you get into, something like what Dan Kennedy teaches, which is understanding your ideal client, understanding your ideal consumer. What are they thinking about? And the moment you start presenting content for them, not talking about me, you'll find it so interesting that most attorneys, when they first started creating video, they always started talking about me. Look at how great I am and all my great credentials.
Right.
I never, ever talk about myself. Why not? Because my ideal client don't care about me. They only care about one thing. How can I help solve their problem? Okay, so I'll give you a great example. I created a video about how to bring a wrongful death lawsuit in New York. It was that simple because I handle wrongful death cases. So I took the viewers step by step, and I didn't teach them everything they needed to know, but I gave them a brief summary of what they need to know if they think that somebody in their family died because of someone's carelessness. I get a call from a woman who tells me that her daughter went online to find information. Why? Because her son recently died. He died in a New York City correctional facility. He was a homeless veteran, and he was arrested for trespassing in a housing authority building. He couldn't make bail. It was a $2,500 bail. He couldn't make it. 5 days later, this guy was dead in his jail cell. Why? Because the heating unit had overheated and the guy had heat stroke and died. So now mom comes out of the woodwork, and what happens? She decides she needs to hire an attorney on behalf of her homeless veteran son. Who did they go to? They went online to look for information about how to sue the city of New York for wrongful death. They found my video. They picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Mr. Oginski, we want you as our attorney." I never met them before, but they found the video so compelling and so useful, they already determined that they wanted me as their attorney. And that's what's so remarkable. Once you develop that trust and teach people something they didn't know.
That's a great story. That's fantastic. How did that case work out? How did that go?
Well, interestingly, I had decided to refer her out to another firm in Manhattan who better was able to handle this matter.
Right.
She did not show up for that appointment. It turns out she went to a different law firm. 6 months later, I'm reading the New York Post, and I see that Scott Stringer, who was the comptroller of the city of New York at the time, and still is, settled that case for $2 million because Mayor de Blasio had decided that he didn't want the publicity surrounding those types of cases, and on his own, without starting a lawsuit, had gone ahead and settled that case. So that was a bit painful, but the point was, it generated the call. Right. And that's what happens with these videos.
So, I mean, look, the bottom line is not what ended up happening, that you got a call from that specific video that was worth arguably $2 million. I mean, right. It's crazy. How has YouTube changed since, as far as content goes, how has YouTube changed from the days when you would first go online and, make that video and put it up to today? I mean, we're talking about, 12, 13 years, right? So how has YouTube changed? Because, 3,000 videos, you've seen it all on YouTube. What's different today than happened back then?
There's a lot more garbage on YouTube, and a lot more that somebody searching has to now filter through. That's the big change. So there's much more content and volume, so that from a standpoint of your ideal client or consumer, they now have to filter out much more, which means that you, as somebody creating video content, you have to make it so interesting for your viewer to stop in their tracks. Your goal really is to create a compelling headline. Your goal is to create a compelling thumbnail. So now when they type in their search, now as they're scrolling through, that causes them to stop and not continue their search. So remember, there are key goals when creating a headline. Your goal is to get the viewer to read the headline, and then you want them to go to the next step, which is to read the subheadline. Right. And the only way to do that is to click the play button, right? So they see an interesting thumbnail image, they see your headline, it's talking about something that they are interested in. What do you have to do next? Your only goal is to get them to press play. You don't want to make a sale then and there. You want to take them to the next step. Once you get them to press play, what's the next step? You want them to watch the first couple of seconds, because if you lose them in the first couple of seconds, they're gone. They're never going to watch your video. Okay, so it's just like print advertising or print media. Your goal is to get them to read the next paragraph, the next paragraph. Same thing on video. Your goal is to get them to continue watching for the next few seconds and watch for the main content, and ultimately get to the point where now you've got a call to action. So you're taking them in the same step-by-step sequence, but you're doing it in a very seamless way that engages the viewer. And one of the key ways to do that is by telling a story, which is what you asked me to tell you about before.
Right.
By telling the story, all of a sudden they get sucked into what you're trying to explain, and now they're more willing to stay and watch the entire video.
So if you're just joining us or if you're listening to us and you're in and out while you're working, I'm speaking with Gerry Oginski. He owns Lawyers Video Studio, and he also is a fantastic medical malpractice personal injury attorney in Nassau County, New York. But if you have any questions about video, you can leave them in the comments on YouTube. But I would prefer that you call Gerry directly because he really is the expert. I've learned just a ton about doing video from Gerry just by going to his website, online, watching his videos. He educates people in video about making video as well as about finding a great lawyer, about your legal case. Here's where you can reach Gerry. His phone number is 516-487-8207, 516-487-8207. The phone number will be down in the YouTube description box if you join us online. I'll repeat it a couple more times for those of you who are in your car listening on a podcast. Don't write it down while you're driving. Pull over or listen to the podcast again to get the information from Gerry again. Gerry, let's talk a little bit about how to create content, because one of the things that people tell me all the time, I talk to independent sales professionals, people who are working for commission only, and they say, listen, Dave, I get what you're saying. I want to be a thought leader, and I love doing video. I can shoot video on my phone and stuff. How do I figure out what to talk about? Gerry, how do people come up with content? That's like the number one question, even more, especially with younger people. They know how to use their phones and they're on Instagram and stuff, so they know how to make video. The question is content, right? How do people decide what to do for content?
Here's a great exercise to do that will help you dramatically. So let's say you're teaching or you have some sales process, or you know what your ideal client goes through each and every day. Okay, you know this information. This is what you do every day. Create a timeline from the moment this person has an idea in their mind and now they need to reach out to you. From that point forward, take and break down every single step that goes on in your particular process. What's involved? Who's involved? What happens next? And literally write down every single step. And I guarantee you, by doing this little exercise, you will have, could be 100 different steps. Once you have a timeline of exactly what happens with your ideal client, now you can pick any one of those and create a video about it. Remember, you don't have to go in order. You don't have to do something in sequence. Start taking one thing and start with the most important, or the ones that are asked most often, that you know that your ideal client or consumer has, what questions they have. And start with that. And once you've created a video about that, take it a different step further and follow that timeline so that now by the end, you've got 100 different pieces of content. And what's so great about every time you create a video, you should also be creating a blog post about that same topic. You should be creating a longer article about that same topic. So now when somebody is searching for this information, they're not going to just find your video, but they'll find your blog post and your article and your frequently asked question. So now you are literally exponentially expanding the amount of content that you have online. So when you think about what should I be creating to tell my ideal client about, what you should be thinking about is, what could I do to help them understand how your process works? Most of these people don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So why not open the doors up and show them? Don't make it, don't make it a secret. These people have questions. Give them the answers to those questions before they ever pick up the phone or email you or come into your physical store. You want to do that so now all this information is on there. Your competitors will not be doing this because they tend to be lazy. And this doesn't take a lot of effort. But go back to the timeline, and this is the critical component. Because if you spend, let's say, half an hour, 15 minutes even, just creating a basic timeline, then you can always go back to it and say, wait a second, there are 5 more steps that I can include between step 1 and step 5. And now you've got 15, now you've got 20, and just keep expanding it, because I guarantee you the moment you start thinking about what else can we talk about, think about things that go on from your consumer standpoint. What do they really need to know that will help them understand whether or not to purchase your services, whether or not to purchase your product? By doing that, all of a sudden you've got tons of content. And then the other way to find great content is not just from what's going on in the news today and how to analogize that to what you offer and how you can best help them, think about how you can help your consumer make a decision, okay? This isn't a high-pressure sales pitch. You're doing something that will help not just your consumer, but will help your entire community. And by doing that, all of a sudden you become that thought leader simply by doing what you know, which is helping somebody understand exactly what you do and how it will help them in their, search for whatever information you're providing.
Great answer. Thank you, Gerry. If you want to reach Gerry, I want you to call him at 516-487-8207. He's the expert on video marketing, regardless of the industry you're in. Gerry, another question I get all the time, and this is something that you can really help us with, is, oh my gosh, how many times do I have to change my wardrobe? I'm going to shoot 20 videos in a day. Do I need to bring 5, 6, 7, 10 suits? What about the background? My office is so crappy. You even mentioned when you started, you were worried about what the background in your office looked like. I mean, not everybody has a step and repeat banner they can put behind them, right? So what about what you're wearing, the background, all that stuff? How important is it? What does it matter?
It matters if your client or consumer thinks it matters. So for example, if somebody's searching for an attorney, sees a guy wearing a t-shirt and shorts on the beach, like I do, that may not be for them. They may have the perception that they want a buttoned up attorney wearing a three-piece suit and tie. And if you believe that your consumers are looking for that, then yes, you should have a suit and tie on, okay? But if you're a bit more casual and you realize that your consumers don't really care what you're wearing and they don't care where you're shooting your video, then by all means, dress casually. It's all dependent upon what you perceive and what your viewers perceive, your ideal client perceives you to be. Now, a lot of people are uncomfortable with shooting video in a location, like when they're on vacation, like I am now, and wearing a shirt like this. When I first started, I would shoot maybe 10 videos in an hour. And I would change my clothes, my tie, my jacket, every couple of videos because I didn't want people to think I was shooting just 10 videos straight, right? At least if you change your clothes occasionally in one sitting, they get the impression that, hey, you're shooting this at different times. And that's perfectly okay, and I recommend it. For attorneys, I strongly recommend never shooting video in front of a legal bookcase. Why? Because that's what all these attorneys would do, and it doesn't make them any smarter. It just makes them look boring as hell, and they all look the same. And your goal as a marketer is to be different, okay? Don't be different just for the sake of being different, but be different because you want to stand out from the crowd. So if everybody is wearing a suit and you're now wearing a polo shirt with a soft collar, great, you are now standing out from your competitors. If everybody's doing video standing in front of a sign like you have behind you, Dave, then do something behind a solid wall. You want something different. And the way to do that is by doing research to see what your competitors are doing. But make sure, my suggestion when you're starting out, have a couple of different changes of clothing so that people think that, hey, you're doing this on different days or different dates. All the TV shows, all the game shows, they tape all these shows at one time, but you'd never know it because they have people change their clothes. So do the same thing to start out. Later on, as you get more experience, you begin to realize, okay, I don't need to do this. I can wear whatever I'm wearing and shoot 5, 6, 7 videos at once. And I can even shoot video outside. I could shoot it in my basement. I could shoot it in my driveway, in my office, anywhere, just to be different. And that's so important.
Really great. Thank you, Gerry. Great information. So tell us how Lawyers Video Studio, how did that come to be? What do you do? How do you help? I mean, I'm assuming you help primarily lawyers, but I think you help people in other professions too. How does it work? How did you start it? And who comes to you and how do you make it all happen?
When I started creating videos for my own practice and I began to realize that people were actually calling me and I began to get good cases and I was able to settle these good cases, I began to realize, you know what, I could probably help other attorneys do the same thing. And, it's not like hoarding this information. And I'll tell you a really quick story. I was at asked to speak at a legal marketing seminar. There's 700 attorneys there. This one attorney, after my talk, this one attorney comes up to me who's very well known in New York, one of the top marketing lawyers in New York, spends millions of dollars a year in marketing, comes up to me and says to me, I can't believe you just gave all that information away. Why would you do such a thing? And I said, you must be kidding. I said, out of 700 lawyers here, maybe 1% of them will actually take action on what I've just told them to do that will get them the type of results that I've described. Okay, so I'm not worried about these people taking my secrets. I wanted to share with them because I wanted to explain how useful this is, how it can help them if they take action. And I really was, at this point, a thought leader and trying to help these people, honestly helping them. But this guy had a closed mindset that he wanted to hoard all this information. So I got the idea, why can't I teach other people how to do the same thing? And again, no one was doing this back then. So I figured, okay, this is 2009 now. I'd created a couple of hundred videos by this point. I realized I proved to myself that this worked. So let me start explaining this and helping other attorneys. And that's what I started to do by teaching and lecturing to other attorneys at different seminars about how to use video to market their practice. And over time, other people, whether accountants or other in the insurance industry, people came up to me and said, hey, you just did this for attorneys. Can you do this for my business? I said, yeah, it's the same exact concept. Just because you're in sales or just because you sell this widget or this product is no different. The concepts of video marketing is the same, no matter what you sell and what you offer.
So Gerry, how do you help people? So you actually shoot the videos for them, you edit them, they get a finished product, right? Do you help them with content too, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's a done for you program where basically we have a conversation, and during that conversation, I basically show them, similar to what we started talking about with creating a timeline, understanding what your consumer wants and what they need to know. And now we map out exactly what type of content you need to create, whether it's 25 videos, whether it's 50 videos, whether it's 20 videos, whatever length of video or whatever amount of videos you want to create. We have the ability to go ahead and create a done for you program where I help you create the content. And on the day that you're set to shoot the video, either you're coming to me in New York or I'm coming to you on location. And I am there coaching you, guiding you, helping you with your headlines, helping you frame what the topic that you're talking about. Because remember, it is critically important to capture their attention. And just as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to tell the viewer everything about your product or service in your short video. You want to give them enough to get them interested and pique their interest so that now they pick up the phone to call, or now they engage and take your call to action to heart. So that's what you want to do. And I'm there helping you do that. And this continues throughout the entire length of time you're creating all these videos. And then on the back end, we go ahead, we edit everything. We create a blog post for you for each video you create. We put it up on YouTube. We give you all your content. It's yours. We tell you, go publish it, share it with the world. And now you're on your way to using that to market your business and your practice. And that's ideally what you should be doing.
So if you're listening to us at home, we're talking with Gerry Oginski. He is the owner and founder of Lawyers Video Studio. He's also a phenomenally successful medical malpractice and personal injury attorney in New York. You can find Gerry at 516-487-8207, 516-487-8207. I want you to call him with any questions you have about video marketing, or if you are looking for a lawyer in any practice area. Here's an interesting thing about personal injury attorneys. Personal injury attorneys will take your call and they'll answer questions from you about just about any case. And the reason is because they send those cases out to people they trust, and in return, those people send cases back to them. So if you have a case in New York State and you want to talk to a lawyer about it, I want you to call Gerry. But more importantly, for our purposes, if you're listening today and you want to get into video, the right way to do it is not to do it yourself, not to do it on your iPhone, because you're not 14 years old and an amateur. You want to be perceived as a professional. And you heard a story from Gerry about how he gets calls all the time, but he got a call for a case that ended up being worth $2 million. Whatever you pay Gerry, the return on investment is phenomenal. So I want you to reach out to Gerry at 516-487-8207. Ask him questions. He doesn't give you the hard sell. If you want to work with him, you work with him. If you don't want to work with him, that's fine. He'll still answer your questions. But give him a call, because he can debunk a lot of the myths of some of the other people out there who are they're gonna offer you stuff you don't really need. Gerry has been doing this himself for years, over 3,000 videos online. What I want you to do, if you do nothing else, I want you to go to his YouTube channel And I want you to look at the videos from when he first started and look at the videos today, because if you do that on my channel, you're going to see exactly what Gerry described. You're going to see a very young, handsome Dave Lorenzo in a really crappy video. And then today you'll see an older, more scraggly Dave Lorenzo who's much more polished in his video production. Gerry, what's the YouTube channel people should go to check out your videos?
The best thing is to go into YouTube and type my name in, Gerry Oginski, Oginski. That's the easiest way to do it. And you'll find all my videos on there. And just, you're exactly right. You know, when you start out, nobody starts out knowing how to do this. And all it takes is practice. And if you start practicing now, a year from now, you will be so much better. 2 years from now, again, you're just going to go up incrementally and you'll be remarkably better over the period of time.
All right, so Gerry with a G, Gerry, Oginski, Oginski. Type that in YouTube, see what comes up. Over 3,000 videos. You're going to run into somebody that looks just like the guy who I'm talking to today. Gerry, it's been a pleasure. I want everybody who's listening to reach out to Gerry if you have questions about video. Again, I'll give you the phone number. It's down in the description on YouTube. Those of you who are listening to the podcast, call them at 516-487-8207. Any questions you have about video, Gerry is the man. Gerry, congratulations on 3,000 videos. Thanks for joining us today here on the show.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, everyone, that's this edition of the Do This, Sell More show. We'll be back right here again next Thursday at noon with another edition. Join us on YouTube. Be sure and punch that subscribe button, ring the little bell so you get notifications. We do these, sometimes we do them live, and it's a whole lot of fun because you get to watch me screw up in real time. Until next week, I'm Dave Lorenzo, and I hope you join us back here. But until you do, I hope you do this and sell more.